Hello, my name is Kevin Loftus, and on this video I will be presenting the workshop presentation that was given on the 28th of the 10th, 2025 for the design of the Blessington Urban Public Realm Plan. This is the third workshop in a series where we've co-designed and worked with the community to develop a design that's fit for the needs of Blessington. So the first workshop, storytelling, was understanding the square, was trying to understand the constraints and opportunities that exist within Blessington. Reimagining the square was where we proposed, having got feedback and input and ideas from the community, a series of options that then were reviewed and were given another round of feedback before the third workshop, which is the presentation that I'm going to give today. Over the next few weeks, we will be moving towards the final completion of the design and the preparation of that for planning application. So today is the presentation of the 28th of October. To start with, just to give a bit of grounding, the design itself was from a town centre first plan. And the town centre first programme sets out to understand the needs of the community prior to putting pen to paper. From the Town Centre First programme, there was Blessington's Town Centre First plan, which highlighted this public realm area as a key project for development and a key project in the revitalisation of Blessington Town Centre. The brief itself set out to create a high quality focal point and public realm space in the heart of the town to afford greater permeability to walkers and wheelers, to improve the setting of landmark buildings in the vicinity, to support local businesses and the community, to create a more attractive, people-friendly environment, to provide improved pedestrian flow, the potential for businesses to incorporate outdoor dining, events and market trading, town centre Wi-Fi and smart, tree planting and rain gardens to ensure the town's resilience to climate change and biodiversity crisis, bespoke and unique integrated light features to attract footfall at night and the nighttime, and fixed seating to provide a space for people to gather. The context, this is the setting that we always give in terms of all of the workshops. Looking at Blessington, close to the Pullafuka reservoirs and Wicklow Hills to the east. The setting of Blessington really coming from the Blessington House and that axial arrangement with the St. Mary's Church going one way and the main street going the other way. So really from the 1600s, mid-1600s onwards, we start to see the development of a series of historic buildings, including the Market Square and Downshire Monument, which all contribute to the streetscape of Blessington. The old tram line that would have gone from Blessington to Dublin, connecting it into the heart of Dublin's capital. This is an outline of the old historic town boundary in pink, and then the black one showing the current extents today, and then just making a point of that axial arrangement, how those buildings were laid out. The town developed really, I suppose, most prominently from around the 90s onwards, where we start to see a lot of stages of development, and even today we're seeing more development extending with current plans and areas under construction, but also the local area plan showing spaces that are set for future growth. The demographics of the area show, compared to the national average, that Blessington has quite a young population. and it has a growing population from 2005 really onwards. We can see a growth of over 100%, and that's set to grow by a further 12% between now and 2030. From an urban analysis perspective, we've looked at mobility, the N81 going through the town, the Blessington Inner Relief Road, which is partially constructed and set to be completed over the next number of years, connecting roads between those, and a planned future improvement scheme that would move the N81, the main flow of that outbound from the town. Then within the local area plan, we have further routes and connections. We have many public bus routes, so 4 of them set out here that run through the town, 3 of them running along the front of the project area. Zooming in on the project area itself, you can see the various historic buildings mapped out along the perimeter or adjacent or even within the site. And we've looked at the character of the area as well. So the various furniture and planters and lighting arrangements, many with different styles and aesthetics. So a need for harmonization there. We also have some one-off pieces of furniture, the likes of the bus stop, some historic elements, public toilets. We've mapped the various trees that exist on the site, the one closest to St. Mary's and the largest tree being one of a historic avenue that would have connected through to the Blessington house. Some trees then reflecting that historic avenue, as well as other cypress, oak and European maple. There's a variety of different surfaces. There are a number of different manholes and places for stormwater. We have looked at the area for cars, for pedestrians, the areas of green space and non-accessible, as well as private space. And all of these then together giving us a percentage breakdown of area usage, with the majority are nearly, the largest portion and near majority being left over to cars currently. And if we were to extend the road to take in, or the site to take in the curtilage of the perimeter road, that would increase to around 54%. We see the pedestrian flows, many of them isolated, generally to the footpaths. We have some moments where traffic stops or pedestrian flow stops where we don't have crossings, other points where we do have crossings. We have the flow of cars, and we also have, in reality, the way people move through the site. So having observed people moving there over a number of visits, you see that they move through the parking areas, so not exactly keeping to the footpaths. We have a breakdown of the existing parking arrangements, the number of spaces provided, and we also have understood that there are underground parking for residents that are not currently being utilised in one of the buildings, and also a 2-story parking, or 3-level even, parking structure that has over 200 parking spaces that are currently being unused. So the potential there to decant or to move and actually increase the overall number of parking spaces that would serve the town centre area. We've looked at different types of function that exist in the area, so banks, pubs, coffee shops, restaurants, offices, some housing, but also some vacant building. We have the active street frontage, so in purple what you see is where you have shops or commercial activity facing onto the streets, and then the inactive areas, which are fencing or areas that are set back, being in black. We've looked at the various landings and ownership we've also looked at the analysis of light throughout the year to determine the areas that would be best set for people to gather and spend time. And what you can see in this image is the areas in orange are the ones that would be most covered in light through the year, whereas the areas then in darker blue have the most shadow throughout the year. We've looked at best practice in terms of urban design. This is from the government's design manual for urban roads and streets. That sets out principles like the treatment of surfaces to make them more welcoming and friendly to pedestrians, the definition of street space having buildings and trees and the likes of that defining what a street should be, the speed that is optimal for an area like this. So with an arterial road being between 30 and 40 kilometers, a link road being 30 kilometers, and a local road between 10 and 30. So looking at 30 really as a sort of a touchstone there, 30 kilometers in terms of traffic movement through these areas. Again, going back to finishes and what will facilitate those slow moving areas. So looking at hard pavement and surfaces that slow traffic down. Some examples from different areas across Ireland. Looking also at how by misaligning streets we can slow them down, slow traffic down. That's done in a subtle way, so you still create driver flow through spaces, but these sort of obstacles become ways of naturally slowing the flow of traffic. We have looked at nature-based solutions, what's called NBS. These are solutions that are helping to mitigate the impacts of climate change. And one of the key ones here is what we call sustainable urban drainage, or SUDS. This is an example of a SUDS solution, so a rain garden, where rather than water going directly into a stormwater system, so if you have a heavy rainfall, all of that stormwater can get backed up and you can get localized flooding, and this is going to increase in terms of likelihood with increases in climate change. By bringing in areas of planting that can absorb the water, infiltrate it potentially into the ground slowly, or through photosynthesis and absorption, that they can take the water and hold it rather than letting it into the stormwater system, with a certain amount eventually getting into that system, but much less than would have previously accessed it. So this is a key way to reduce the potential of flooding while also improving the environments that we create, like the examples here showing places where you've trees, you've natural planting, you have space for people to gather and congregate, you have places for pollinators, and you also have the potential for communities to be involved in the maintenance and giving a sense of public ownership of these spaces. Some good examples of how these solutions have been put into place. This one showing how nature and climate solutions can actually really help define space, making them attractive places for people to gather and congregate. This one showing how by using surfaces you can make places attractive, where you can have mixes of vehicle and pedestrian traffic. This project showing how a historic building can become really the main focal point of a design process or design solutions, where biodiversity, mixed uses and event spaces are collected and held together. This showing an example of a linear park that exists along two roadways in a rural community. Again, showing how biodiversity, water, seating can make attractive places. Then in Clonakilty, in Cork, an Irish example where we have seating, a square, we have water, biodiversity, history, and community. And this has been really a new driver for regeneration within Clonakilty, a town similar to the size of Blessington. South Main Street in Bandon, showing sustainable urban drainage as it's growing and developing. The Roscommon Public Realm project, which has helped revitalise the centre of Roscommon. At Lone, what we can see here along the streetscape and upgrades from 2017 to today, 2025, substantial changes in the street configuration, and an increase in footfall, people gathering, people spending time, and people spending money. So what does unsuccessful design look like? What do we want to avoid? That's sometimes as important to reflect on as what's good. So this is an example of an urban square in Ballina, which is where our office is at. And while in general it's very welcome to see public realm projects like this, bringing back old historic spaces into use, there are a few key things here that have meant that this public realm space isn't as successful as it might have been. So looking at this, we can see that there's no integration of services. So we've manhole covers everywhere. There's no activity on the lower ground floor, so there's no life bustling out onto the street. There's no greenery, making the space feel quite heavy, and then there's no change of scale. Everything feels quite large and grand, and even a bit intimidating. And importantly here, what you can see is that there's no footfall. So projects like this really succeed based on the incorporation of key elements that make them attractive places. So we need to think about the different users, and from that understand what best to put into a public realm design. So imagining a square for children or families, for shoppers, for elders, for accessibility, for meeting, relaxing, for playing, for connecting, for walking. And all of these different considerations or possibilities should be reflected in any design proposal. We had feedback from the workshop, from the original first workshop. A number of groups gave us input. That was all taken and used to define the key ambitions of the project from the beginning. The groups were asked for their vision for 2050. It was a public realm space that had green areas that would promote local business markets, a focal point of the town, an event space, a shared space, a safe space. People congregate in the area, small events, craft markets, a European style square, not a car park, a vibrant urban area, a destination, pleasant space to live in, work and visit, country market opening up, reduced traffic to 30k, continuity of street furniture and lighting. And then from that we developed the original concept options for the design. We went through a number of different iterations at each stage, trying to learn from the options that were being created, and we took two of what were appearing the most matched to the ambition, or the most successful design directions, and we developed those further. So the first one we're calling the urban park. This is a project that sought to maximize the amount of green space within the area. So you can see the design from a number of different directions here. The second option, called the archipelago, is where we tried to distribute the various functions and the design in a sort of loose manner that would make a fun, interactive place for people to move through, looking at it again from a number of different directions. So from both of these options, we had a second round of community feedback looking at nature. People felt it was positive, but also flood management needed to be incorporated. We needed to see more trees. The idea of sods being excellent for planted areas. In terms of workers, no parking was considered an issue, as we'd greatly reduced the amount of parking spaces. Having a beautiful space for lunch, it would bring new pride to Blessington. It would deter full day parking by people using existing parking as park and ride, or that being a proposal. In terms of elders, consideration of crossing and accessibility, the idea that people must feel confident in multi-generational areas, the idea of bringing in dementia-friendly design, having seating with backing, being important within the design proposals as well. In terms of people with disabilities, the idea of accessibility, again, concern about losing accessible parking spaces, the ratio of green space to path being important to maintain, to ensure crossings level with the footpath. So you can see I'm just taking a sample of some of the feedback here. In terms of teenagers, green space has been positive, having spaces to sit. An urban forest should be planted for visibility to ensure no antisocial behaviour, no safety issues, no suitable attraction for them there currently. In terms of residents, an overall positive effect, somebody recommending a taxi rank, a place that creates a garden for those living on the main street, space for them to connect with nature. That's some of the feedback on the design. Pros being more open space, cons being reduction in traffic or parking. Again, looking at businesses, the big concern there is no parking. The sense that businesses would be unhappy with the lack of parking and belief that it would deter from their business, and the suggestion of the car parking building, or suggestion of use of the car parking building, I think, or use of existing car park. Then in terms of children, concerns about safety, as always, making sure that we have traffic calming in place, that there is protection from the N81. The idea of the multi-generational place being positive, great spaces for children, children focused overall. The pocket forest being great, the idea of the water fountain being cool. Option 2, providing more for kids, but to maintain the walkway of trees from option 1, so some potential to combine and overlap them. In terms of what was needed for shoppers, again, parking being mentioned a few times there, important to have adequate pedestrian crossings and a central crossing space in both options. Then general feedback, again, feedback on parking, move the market to the urban forest was one recommendation, to have adequate lighting provision throughout to avoid antisocial behaviour, to have bike parking, the sense that people preferred option 1 in this instance, loving the historic avenue, the desire line as the base structure for space, plus the balance of greenery to grey. We like the unstructured approach to playground in option 1. It could encourage imaginative play across multi-generations. So parking is obviously coming back multiple times as a key concern. So is relocating parking actually bad for business? And in this instance, we're not talking about removing parking, we're talking about potentially having other parking options opened up that would provide more space. But when we look at the town centre itself, the main street of Blessington, there's sometimes a sense that cars always existed, but we can see from this image that that's not the case. Blessington was, like all market towns, developed before we had the car, so it was horse and carriage. And from that, you would have wide streets, not necessarily to park cars, but for people and markets to gather and congregate. So it's where goods were sold, it's where you would have activity, as you can see from this image from the church steeple. And that's really what made towns like this successful, was bringing together of people. So market towns are about gathering people together. And if we look at Blessington today, what you can see is that there's not much potential for people to gather. In this image, you've 51 vehicles, and in the same image, we were able to find 2 people. And on this image, you can see that there was 64 vehicles, and we were only able to find 1 person within that. So the sense that vehicles, and they are very important within rural communities to bring people into town, but the sense that they bring footfall is not reflected in the reality. We need to also provide spaces for people. We need to make places that are welcoming, because images like this show that having cars dominate make it unattractive for people to spend time. But when public ground space is provided, like you can see in this image, there is opportunities for people to gather. Even within that, you can see that where they gather is very much confined to the spaces that they feel safe. So opportunity for activity and gathering, but it needs more space. So what impact does increased public ground space have? In Blackrock, around COVID times, they were one of the first local authorities in Dunleary to provide space over to the public realm. So by taking away parking, you give over places for cycleways, for cafes to extend, for people to gather. And very early on, the interventions that were there were seen as positive. So this article from 2021 shows that there was calls early on from businesses and locals to maintain the changes at Blackrock. That has happened, so temporarily they were maintained, and TU Dublin did a study on the improvements that were brought into space, or into the village in Blackrock. They surveyed a number of business owners and a business representative group, and from that they got very positive feedback overall on the interventions. So it's the sense that it's improved no end. It's the vibrancy, it's the animation of the street, the activity. It's going towards how a village centre should be, full of people socialising, chatting, interacting, and it's not just throughway for cars. The fact that there's less traffic and that there's a nice atmosphere on the street, less pollution, less noise. There's great footfall. I like that there is wide footpaths and that it feels a safe place to walk. You can bring buggies and families here. My view is it's significantly better. When we first moved to Blackrock in 2012, there were a lot of empty shops. Now it's so vibrant. So these are all business owners, and I think of all the 21 or so business owners that were asked, only one of them had negative reflections. All of the rest were very positive. In particular, businesses noted the improved impact on footfall, street vibrancy and vitality around Blackrock Main Street, an improved sense of atmosphere and village feel to Blackrock Village, a particular appreciation of the new outdoor seating, greenery and additional trading areas, an overall positive feeling to that the COVID mobility has worked, and an overall positive feeling towards the COVID mobility works and an overall feeling that it worked, and trading conditions through the pandemic would probably have been worse without it. The general conclusion is that the temporary COVID mobility project in Blackrock Main Street, involving road space reallocation and public realm expansion, has contributed to the regeneration of Blackrock Main Street village centre over time. It has brought about predominantly positive changes and remains popular among the business community. So this, I suppose, statement or posting from the Blackrock Business and Community newsletter, making that point that there was a feeling in 2024 that Blackrock Village is thriving. And then from just the previous month, the Blackrock Business and Community newsletter talking about Living Streets Blackrock works ready to go. So this is the move from taking the temporary measures that were first put into place in 2001 to put a plan in place to make those permanent, and huge support from the business community in the delivery of those ideas. So taking those two previous options and with all of what we've seen in mind, we've tried to combine the best of both. So the general layout from option one, which people felt worked best, with the play spaces from option two, which seemed to give a more engaging overall working of the options. So from this, we've a revised design. Looking at the plan here, this is the aerial view from a few different angles. We can see the market square, what we call the monument square, the potentiality to extend those during certain events. The flexible square, which would be a space for creators or for dining space. The biodiversity area, the commercial zone, and the multi-generational zone that links the Dunn stores to the rest of the town. Within that, the multi-purpose space for different events. We show the market square as the potential to have market stalls, maybe a Christmas market or a marquee event, a concert or an outdoor cinema. Then the flexible square as a place to have dining tables for food trucks, but also as a traffic overflow zone. Multi-generational zone, place for natural play, for gathering, for general play, for water, for dining. Then improved biodiversity within that urban forest space, showing the connections using birch as opposed to heavier leafed trees to make sure that there's visibility. A picnic table, a rain garden, a route for exploration, places for gathering, and maybe a potential connection through the credit union building in future. This showing the main traffic flows where you would have traffic calming, raised pedestrian sections, the historic avenue, the pedestrian flows as people would move through the site, the place to are retaining the bus stop and giving a nod potentially to the historic tram line that once passed by that area, having accessible toilets and bike parking included, as well as bringing back some parking, having accessible parking beside the credit union, and showing sustainable urban drainage areas, so where we can gather rainfall that collects onto the hard surfaces and transferring those into the green spaces to gather and percolate. So walking through as an adult what that might look like from street level, looking across at the credit union, moving in through the market square space, going alongside the historic Tree Avenue over to the commercial zone, and then across into the multi-generational zone for people to gather. Walking through as a child, what that might look like, going across the play areas, through the crossing into the urban forest, back towards the market square, and finally back towards across the N81 and the West Wicklow house. Potential variations, we're currently considering changing the one-way or from a two-way to a one-way system, although from the feedback we got in the workshop, this is probably something we're not going to go with. Another variation is where we would still maintain the traffic calming elements of the design, but have a more compact, straight moving sections within the overall design proposal. That's everything from me. I hope you found this presentation informative. We will now be finalising the design proposal before going to part 8. Thanks for your time.